Last night at the UFC 298 post-fight press conference, Dana White was pressed mercilessly by an MMA media member who actually had amazing follow-up questions and was armed with the facts. And he gets pressed very, very hard about the return of Conor McGregor to the UFC. And he actually asked the questions we all wanted to know. We don't necessarily get answers, but we're going to take a look at all that in this video. But there was a lot of topics that Dana White covered at the UFC 298 post-fight presser. So we're going to go through all of them in this video. We're going to go through Dana White discussing UFC 300. He was kind of pressed on UFC 300. As you guys know, we got the main event last night, which is Alex Pereira versus Jamahal Hill. I already made a dedicated video on that. I'll link it down in the description. But Dana White was pressed about that, about the potential different options. He's pissed at somebody. He talked about Leon Edwards accepting 3 different fights. We're going to look at some of that from the post-fight presser. He lied again about Merab Dvalishvili. He also absolutely took a steaming shit on Henry Cejudo. We're going to take a look at that. And also, and this is probably going to end up being its own dedicated video, I really believe Dana White in the UFC is just utterly screwing Belal, and we all should care. Whether you're a fan of Belal or not, we all should care what the UFC is doing to Belal Muhammad. So we're going to start right away. I want to jump in right away. We're going to see what Dana White has to say about the UFC 300 main event, because that's kind of where it starts off, and he starts going off about Leon Edwards. Let's take a listen.
What are your thoughts on the fight?
I wouldn't say that I settled.
Settled, decided on. It's an apology.
Yeah, listen, we were out there talking to lots of people, trying to make lots of fights.
By the way, the initial question was, how did you settle on Alex Pereira versus Jamahal Hill? And Dana didn't like that, vocabulary there. He didn't like the term settled.
And in this business, it's about taking opportunities. Headlining UFC 300 with all the buzz and all the energy around it.
Let me just tell you this right now, because he's about to go off on a diatribe about Leon Edwards. Dana White is infuriated at somebody. I don't know who. Maybe I'll have some speculation in this video. I'm still kind of digesting it. But Dana White is low-key shitting on someone. It's about taking opportunities to headline UFC 300. He's shitting on somebody for turning down the opportunity to fight on UFC 300, or who was trying to negotiate with the UFC and ended up not being on UFC 300, because I can imagine the UFC and Dana White, as a part of their negotiation process, saying, look, we're not necessarily giving you what you want, but this opportunity to be on 300 is going to build your brand and build your star power. And I'm not saying that's not true, but I'm telling you right now, based on what Dana says, and we'll hear some more of it, and you guys will let me know your opinion down in the comments, Dana White is literally pissed at someone for turning down a UFC 300 main event spot, because this was not their first choice. I mean, we're 55 days out, and they settled on Alex Pereira, Jamahal Hill. So let's listen to more of what Dana has to say about it.
Let me say this. Leon Edwards has had like 3 opponents throughout this thing. Leon Edwards doesn't say no to anybody. This kid is an absolute stud. He's had like 3 opponents thrown at him during UFC 300. Yes. Was willing to take on anybody, man. Kid's an absolute stud. Leon, thank you. Much respect.
So basically, shouting out Leon, because somebody else is turning down fights. Somebody else is turning down fights. And there's a report that came out, and take it with a grain of salt. The Shmo reported Belal Muhammad was not one of the opponents offered, or Belal Muhammad was not offered the fight. Now, this can get a little tricky depending on a source. If he talked to Belal Muhammad, Belal could say, I was never offered the fight, which may very well be true. But they could have offered it to Leon without offering it to Belal, just because, okay, we'll figure it out and blah, blah, blah. Or he could have talked to somebody with the UFC, and then if it's for sure that they never offered it to Belal, that's crazy, because then who are those 3 opponents? And I think I'm going to make a more dedicated video on this, but if I had to guess, we're looking at Khamzat Chimaev, Shavkat Rakhmonov, and then maybe a wild card. I mean, Khamzat's already kind of a wild card considering he was fighting at middleweight, but maybe an Islam Makhachev fight. Maybe Dana White's mad at Khamzat Chimaev because he was talking about fighting on 300, then all of a sudden he said, I'm not fighting during Ramadan. But I think it's crazy the potential that Belal Muhammad was not offered a welterweight title fight. Now, on to the next thing. This is still about UFC 300 here, and he's basically asked, the media member picks up what Dana White's putting down, reads between the lines, and knows that Dana's kind of shitting on someone here. he's complimenting Leon, but really what he's doing is actually shitting on someone else. So they kind of press him and it's like, well, what was going on with the decision making? Was somebody asking for too much money or whatever? And Dana White gets a response, but also he copes about UFC 300 too.
This was not about money. It was all about timing. We got 3 killer cards in a row, and in this business you have injuries and all kinds of other bullshit that goes on behind the scenes. And you know, we've been talking about 300 forever, and we were just trying to make the best fights that we could possibly make. We had 2 more fights to make, and we were trying to put on 2 badass fights.
He almost kind of slips up there. Like, we were trying to put on 2 badass fights, but we ended up with Alex Pereira, Jamal Hill, which is a great fight, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't necessarily live up to the expectations that Dana White himself set. But then he goes on a little bit more, and you'll hear what he has to say.
So, these 2 guys are it. I mean, I'm sure if you saw the video, I walked through who they both are, what they've both done. Both guys are hungry. They both want it. No way that fight sucks.
I mean, these guys are it. I mean, is there anything more enthusiastic than your UFC 300 main event and Dana White, the president, says, these guys are it? And if you saw my Instagram story or my Instagram video I posted, you know why. By the way, talk about a lame-ass way to announce a fight. I don't even care how they announce fights, to be quite honest. I just was annoyed that it kept dragging this out and dragging their feet when we're getting closer and closer to the event. But, you know, for Dana, who cried and whined that Ariel Helwani broke the story years ago about Brock Lesnar for UFC 200, to wait till the very last second to announce it on your Instagram video at 2 o'clock in the morning after UFC 298, it's just dumb, and it makes no sense business-wise, in my opinion. It doesn't hurt them, like, significantly, but you already have a lot of buzz or a decent amount of buzz regarding UFC 298. Why kind of step on it by announcing this right afterwards? And also, you could announce this earlier this week, but they couldn't come to a deal because they're negotiating with all these different fighters. You know, there's talk of Leon Hamzat. There was talk of DDP versus Izzy. They just settled on this because of negotiations going on. It wouldn't shock me if Dana White's mad at DDP. Dana White was mad at DDP for turning down the Israel Adesanya fight at 293. Dana, and I've talked about this before, expects fighters to fight injured if it makes him a lot of money. If it's a big fight, he'll get pissed if you don't accept the fight if you're injured. Now, the next thing, we're still on UFC 300 here. He talks a little bit more about Leon Edwards, but then he goes on about Belal here. And I just think this, he's asked to confirm Belal as the next title contender. And I just think this is ridiculous. I just think this is completely ridiculous. And we should all care about this. And again, I'll probably make a dedicated video in the next week or so if we get more information. But if not, I'll probably make a video anyway. But I wanted to include that in here.
1 or 3 or 2.
Yeah, listen, the guy's willing to fight 3 different opponents. And obviously, if it was for UFC 300, it's 3 nasty opponents. This guy doesn't care. He'll fight anybody. And
by the way, obviously, if it was for UFC 300, it was 3 nasty opponents. It wouldn't have been Belal Muhammad, 10-fight unbeaten streak. Looked better than ever in his last few fights. It was 3 nasty opponents. It wouldn't shock me if he was trying to get GSP to come out of retirement. Would not shock me.
You know, think about this. We call, and we're talking about UFC 300. You're going to headline, you're going to fight this guy. Then we call back and say, the fight that's going to happen. You're going to fight this guy, right? And then the 3rd time we call and change opponents on him again. It's just crazy. And this guy could care less. He's up for the challenge. He's ready to fight anybody. I love it. Respect it very much.
So there you go. Talks about Leon some more. I respect Leon for taking all comers in a day and age where we got, you know, Ilia Topuria calling out Conor McGregor, and Sean O'Malley doesn't want to fight contenders. He's fighting Marlon Chito Vera, the most undeserving contender in the bantamweight division. I respect it from Leon. But this is Dana's way of subtly shitting on somebody else. And I almost feel like people are implying that Belal Muhammad turned down the fight. There's no way Belal Muhammad could have 2 torn ACLs. He would have accepted that fight for 300. 100%. But now he's asked to confirm, okay, since Leon isn't on 300, is Belal Muhammad next, like you said a year ago? You promised him the shot a year ago when he stepped in on short notice to help save UFC 288. Is he next?
So you sorted through a few different opponents for him. Where do you go back to next time? Is it still Belal at like the top?
I have no idea what we're going to do yet. He's not fighting on 300 when we figure it out.
Yeah.
I have no idea. He was so gung-ho to talk about 300 and Leon and praising him. Is Belal next? Like you promised him? Like you sold us Wolf tickets for 298 or 288? Oh, I have no idea. We'll let you know. We have no idea. And this is, you know what's annoying about this? If Leon's ready to go, why are we waiting? Why are we wasting guys' careers? I mean, Hamzat fought once last year. You know, and I know I'm going off to Hamzat now, but like, if somebody's ready to fight, why are you not allowing them to fight? Like, we had Leon wait out 10 months for Colby Covington, and then come to find out he said he was ready to go in September. So, like, I don't understand. Like, is the UFC, what's going on with their, like, planning? Can they not plan an event more than, like, 3 months out? Is that it? They can't plan? Like, how do they knew UFC 300 was coming up. Why are they scraping together, whatever they can find last second to have a headliner for 300? It just makes absolutely no sense. And we saw the same thing with UFC 293 last year, where, okay, they should have scheduled Robert Whittaker DDP earlier, and then we could have easily got DDP Adesanya for 293, but we didn't get that either. Now, moving on to the next thing, and I had, as soon as I heard this, I had to cover this as well. He's lying about Merab more and more and more and more and more. And in this one, he doesn't outright lie about Merab, but he alludes to a lie that he's been telling. Him and the MMA community have been regurgitating time and time again, that Merab actually called him out for during his UFC 298 post-fight interview in the cage. Let's listen to that.
What's his status? And
that I have no idea.
Oh, first off, the guy starts to ask about Henry Cejudo's retirement status. And we're going to look at here in a second this kind of same clip here of him absolutely taking a shit on Henry Cejudo.
That I have no idea. Listen, Merab was in a position where he wouldn't fight his friend. You know how we love that here when you won't do that.
Absolute horseshit. Horseshit. Merab was not the number one contender until March of 2023. March of 2023. Aljamain Sterling versus Henry Cejudo was already booked, and it was already known that Sean O'Malley was waiting for the winner. At no point was Merab ever offered a fight with Aljamain Sterling, and I'm tired of hearing the lie. I'm tired of hearing the lie. Dana White's basically saying, well, he said at some point in time he doesn't really want to fight his friend. He'd prefer not to fight his friend. He doesn't want to fight his friend. Oh, so, but he was never in that position. I mean, that's like somebody outside. That's like Javid Basharat saying, yeah, I don't ever want to fight my brother. Oh, so if he says that now, you're going to hold it against him when it's time for a title shot and those maybe particular set of circumstances fall in line? It makes absolutely no sense. Merab has said multiple times, that the title fight was never offered to him. If you look at the timeline, it's literally impossible. It's literally impossible. The bantamweight title fights were already lined up, and Merab wasn't even number one contender yet, and then he earned number one contender status with a win over Piotr Jan. It all comes down to they're protecting Sean O'Malley. And maybe they can't protect him anymore because Dana White did say Merab's next in this, but it wasn't like he was super animated. He just said, yeah, he's next. Because what else is he going to say? But let's make it very clear, because a lot of the MMA community has run with this. I don't understand how people don't, actually follow what's going on. They just listen to whatever Dana says and take it as the holy grail. But Merab was never offered a title fight. Now he gets into Henry Cejudo a little bit here.
So, I haven't been thrilled with Merab. I don't like that attitude. You fight everybody, you do whatever. Merab went in there tonight and he beat the former champion, Henry Cejudo.
By the way, Merab is back in Dana's good graces a little bit because Dana White, and I've been saying this for so long and nobody ever talks about this, Dana White hates Henry Cejudo's guts. Hates his guts. And you can tell with some of the comments he makes here.
Henry Cejudo already retired, okay? He did the whole drop the gloves thing. Tonight was Merab's night. Merab went in there, he fought the number 3 guy in the world, former world champion. He won easily, won the fight. Tonight was Merab's night. If he wants to retire again, he could do that here or somewhere else. You don't give the mic to Cejudo tonight. Tonight was Merab's night.
Look, I got to be honest. I don't like Henry Cejudo at all. I think he's cringy. I think he's annoying. If that really was his last fight, he deserved the opportunity to retire on the mic. They could have offered him 20 seconds to retire on the mic. They gave Joe Pyfer a post-fight interview last week when he lost to Jack Hermanson, but they couldn't give a 2-division champion, a one-time simultaneous 2-division champion, 15, 20, 30 seconds to retire on the microphone. The reason that Dana hates Henry Cejudo so much, Henry retired in 2020 as a negotiation tactic. He won the second belt. He retired because it was a negotiation tactic. I think probably Coach Erickson is here. Or maybe, I don't know if it's Ali in his ear. I doubt it's Ali. He thought he was worth so much. He's like, I'm an Olympian. I'm a 2-division champ. I deserve millions of dollars like Conor McGregor. And he retired and he thought, oh, the fans are going to want me back. Dana's going to want me back. And nobody cared. Nobody cared. He wasted the prime of his career sitting on the sidelines. And Dana didn't take kindly to that. didn't take kindly to that at all. The only reason they gave Henry Cejudo a title shot against Aljamain Sterling is because they really did not like Aljamain Sterling, and they were hoping Cejudo would beat Aljo. So that's why he got the title shot. But they don't like Henry. They didn't give him the opportunity. If that was, in fact, Henry's last fight, even coming from someone who gets kind of rubbed the wrong way by Henry Cejudo, he deserved the 20 seconds on the microphone to be able to retire. They gave it to Joe Pyfer. Okay, next thing is the McGregor back and forth, which I absolutely loved. And I mean, this exchange was actually good MMA media. I could not believe it. I never praised MMA media so much in 1 week. I'm praising Kevin Iole, praising Aaron Bronstetter in my Jamal Hill video, and now I'm praising this guy. I don't even know who this guy is, but if I had to make a guess, who this guy was, I guarantee he works for like a local, outlet in California or something along those lines, because there's no way, I don't recognize his voice, so he's not there on a regular basis. And man, he was grilling Dana White. And Dana didn't even want to let him finish questions, but man, he kept it professional, and he had amazing follow-up questions. Listen to this. He's asked about Conor McGregor.
Right over here, Dana.
Yes, sir.
With regard to Conor McGregor, what is the holdup with his return?
What do you mean?
Well,
By the way, I feel like I kind of recognize this guy's voice. If you guys know who this media member is, please comment it down below. Shout out to this guy. Round of applause. This is what we need from MMA media. There's one question I would have asked that he didn't, but we'll talk about that in a second. What do you mean? And look how pissed Dana is. There's no shit-eating grin there. No shit-eating grin there.
I mean, the Ultimate Fighter was over back in August, and I can't imagine the plan was for him to be out as long as he's been.
Well,
Yeah, the Ultimate Fighter was finished back in August. You announced his fight back in February 2023, a year ago, and he still doesn't have a fight on the books? Perfect follow-up question, but normal MMA media wouldn't have been able to do that.
the first problem was that he broke that shin bone. This is ridiculous. He broke a shin bone 3 years ago, but let's let Dana lay out all the different arguments. recovering from that. That was one of the reasons we had it. And the other problem is he's fucking rich.
And how does that present an issue to you with negotiations?
What do you mean?
Well, I'll ask, does Conor McGregor...
Conor McGregor doesn't need money.
So are we at a point here where Conor McGregor may never fight for the UFC? Can you say that?
If you had shitloads of money, would you be sitting here right now asking me this fucking question?
No.
No, you would not. That just answered your question.
Well, I answered no. So you're saying there's a chance that Conor McGregor will not fight again for the UFC?
I don't know. Conor McGregor's got a lot of money. And, anytime we get Conor, we'll be happy to, be thrilled when he comes and fights. But money complicates a lot of things. He just filmed a movie. He's got to do the press for the movie, and he's got obligations with that. And
Let me explain to you. Dana White, what he's doing right now is gish galloping. He's throwing out a million different arguments. So let's lay out all the different arguments that Dana White just laid out. It's impossible in real time unless you're super prepared to really go back at all these different arguments. He's got a broken leg. He's got a movie. He's got press for the movie. He's got a bunch of money. He's just throwing out a million different things. Money complicates things. Dana just throws out 5, 6, 7 different reasons, but it doesn't really make sense. So if it's his health, then why is he begging for a fight for the last 6 months? If it's money, then is he ever returning? Why'd you announce the Ultimate Fighter then? Like, what is going on here? And everyone knows it is contract negotiations. And oh my God, this media member actually asked Dana about it. And Dana cuts him off. But the guy finishes his question anyway. Round of applause for this guy.
he does want to fight this year, but we'll see what happens.
Is part of the issue that Conor...
That's the only issue.
Is there an issue,
There's no
Look, Dana cuts him off twice. I don't want you to even finish that question. I don't want to be pressed on it.
other issue. That's it.
wanting to re-sign him to a longer contract?
Shout out to that guy for finishing his question. Is part of the issue wanting to sign him to a long-term contract? Conor McGregor has 2 fights left on his deal. That is why Conor McGregor's not fighting. I 100% believe that. The UFC does not like to let these guys get down to the last fight on their deal, especially when they're a big superstar like Conor McGregor. And I believe Conor McGregor has seen what Francis Ngannou did and has become inspired. And I believe Conor McGregor may never fight with the UFC ever again. He may just wait out his contract, the sunset clause. But listen, Dana gives another response. And again, he just dances around the topic.
Conor McGregor has probably been one of the best business partners we've ever had. Doing business with Conor is getting Conor to show up to shit on time is a problem. But Conor, as far as the business goes, for a guy, everybody talks about how Conor used to be on the dole and all this stuff. For a guy that was on the dole, Conor McGregor is a very good businessman, and Conor McGregor has always been a great partner to us.
There has been open negotiations with the UFC and Conor McGregor multiple times throughout his UFC career. And how is this not a walking contradiction? How is this not a walking contradiction? Because Dana just said, oh, well, money's complicating things and he's rich. And then all of a sudden, oh, he's great to do business with. So then why isn't he fighting? What's the reason? And I wish he would have asked one more question. This one question I would have loved to hear Dana White's response to him. I would have loved for him to say, so has Conor McGregor been offered dates and he has turned down those potential dates? I would have loved to hear the answer to that question. And also, I think what Dana's doing here is a little bit of damage control. At no point, first off, the UFC doesn't necessarily need Conor, but they don't want him to go anywhere else. And Conor McGregor is worth a lot of profit to the UFC. And he doesn't want to piss Conor off, because then if Conor goes on a media tirade, then it's not going to be a good look for the UFC, and then it's all going to explode and go crazy. And I'm curious how this ends up going for the UFC and Conor McGregor. I'm very curious to see how this plays out over the course of this next year or so. But Dana's doing a little bit of damage control here, talking about, oh, what a great businessman, and he's so easy to make money with. And, well, wait a second, you were just saying he's too rich to even do his job. So which is it, Dana?
There's never any hanging out and haggling for money, or, you pay me more money. Conor McGregor has never done anything even remotely close to that. It's the exact opposite.
So Conor's never asked for an upgrade in his contract. He's never asked to renegotiate his contract. That's flat out false. We've seen it happen basically in open air before. We've seen it happen before. So Dana's completely full of shit here.
When it's time to dig in and get to work and make money, he's probably the most incredible partner we've ever had, to be honest with you.
So when it's time to dig in and make money, he's the most incredible partner we've had. Well, the time to dig in and make money was since February of 2023. Literally 12 months ago. Almost 13 months ago. So what is going on here? You announced the Ultimate Fighter. You sold these Wolf tickets. Now you have Conor McGregor. Who knows if he ever fights in the UFC again? And that's the last clip from Dana White. Who knows if he ever fights in the UFC again? And I'm telling you right now, Michael Chandler, talk about fumbling the bag. I bring this up every time we talk about Conor, but people talk about, oh, Francis Ngannou fumbled the bag. Chandler has now sat out for damn near, it's going on 2 years, for a mythical fight, a mythical training camp, for a mythical weight class. I mean, I covered it in multiple other videos, so I'm not going to show it here. He's talking about in early January, yeah, I'm leaving my family soon. But this whole gish galloping, argument from Dana White where he's just saying, oh, it's broken leg and it's this and that, and it just makes absolutely no sense. Like, which is the reason? It can be a multitude of reasons, but it doesn't make any sense. If he's not healthy, then why are you saying money complicates things? Because at that point, if he's just not healthy, okay, well, when is he going to be healthy? What are the doctor's opinions? You don't know what's going on with your biggest star in your entire organization. And Kevin Iole pressed him on that. I'll link that video down in the description if you want to go check that out. I did that earlier this week. It makes absolutely no sense. And I'm telling you right now, Michael Chandler, if you watch this post-fight press conference, he's 6 foot from the edge. And he's thinking maybe 6 foot ain't so far down. And, he's popped in a Creed CD. He's sitting in his car right now, smoking a cigarette, listening to Creed, because he's now wasted his career away praying for a fight against Conor McGregor at a mythical weight class that he's probably never going to get. And I've said that since February of last year. And Dana's like, oh, he wants to fight this year. We'll see what happens, though. Think about how non-committal that is. Imagine you've already been sitting out for a year and a half, and you're waiting for your opponent to return. And Dana says, oh, they hope to fight. He hopes to fight this year, but we'll see what happens. I mean, that's crazy. That's craziness. So shout out to this reporter for really pressing Dana White. Shame on Dana for, again, not being willing to answer the question. It's definitely contract negotiations. Let me know what you guys think about all these different topics down in the video or down in the comments, and let me know what dedicated videos you want. I'm thinking about doing a dedicated video on Bilal Muhammad potentially not getting the next welterweight title shot. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.